All right, guys, let's get into a little college football action. Also looking in the chat box. What's up, Joe Everett, Vitalis, Cynthia doing some work in the chat box. Bit Jimmy the Bag in here. What's up, everyone? Let us know, I guess, what you want to hear. And college football-wise, guys, let's just go around the horn. What caught your eye? What are you looking to, I guess, to bet on? What are you looking to fade? Anything in the betting markets that caught your eye this past week in college football that you can take going forward? BMOC, why don't you start us off?
Well, I think kind of right now is Georgia. I mean, I was really impressed with what they did over the weekend and going into South Bend and getting a big win against a football program that we know always gets calls at home. We know is always going to be well received at home, but the fans came in. Look, I thought the backup played well. They're doing all this without Eason, and that's only going to improve when he comes back. Again, I keep saying it. They have not one but two good running backs. They're a great defensive team. They're going to get only better over the season. And look, I think they're starting to kind of believe in what Kirby Smart's selling there. I mean, Kirby Smart, and that's what I like about right now in college football. These good coaches, you know, him and Lincoln Riley and some of these guys. I think Tom Herman soon's going to feel it as well. You're starting to see these teams really kind of buy into what the coaches are selling. It takes a year or two, but that was a big win for the Bulldogs over the weekend. Now they look at Patsy this week, and then they open up SEC play. They don't play Alabama this year. I think you're going to have a pretty good year for the Georgia Bulldogs. I was happy to see them go on the road and get a big win in a tough atmosphere. But I will say this, Drew, coming into this weekend, there's some tough games, but I got a really interesting angle on one game that we're going to get to, I think, here in a little bit. But overall, it was a fun week in college football. I had a couple winners. And again, I was surprised with Baylor's outcome, but we'll get to them a little bit later, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, BMOC Kyle Hamburg chiming in saying you're talking UGA on the Roundtable.
I like this team. I like it.
Absolutely. And I'm actually here in Atlanta right now. I was watching the game out late at some restaurant bars near SunTrust Park, which is a really cool atmosphere. And it seems like everybody's really high on UGA, and they look good against Notre Dame. So I think the Bulldogs are bet on for sure. But Donnie, any thoughts that you want to get out to the listeners?
Yeah, I want to keep it down in the ACC. You know, these Florida programs, after this hurricane came through, a lot of these teams look like they're not even going to play a football game in over 3 weeks. You got Miami, Florida State, which was supposed to be this weekend. That got postponed. You got Central Florida, Georgia Tech postponed. Indiana game actually got postponed with Florida International. I believe they picked up an FCS team. So it's kind of an interesting, dichotomy, what's going to take place, who's going to come back. I don't know who it actually benefits in this situation, because I think if you're Miami, you probably want to get back on the horse and play Florida State and say, you know what? They have a green quarterback over there, freshman. We'd like to get after him right away, not give him a couple games to get started. But I agree in the effort of fairness there. You're going to get a much better football game by postponing that down the line. So just these Florida teams and how they come back for playing, having 18, 19, maybe 20 or so odd days that they're going to have off. An interesting one that I'm looking at this weekend is who's going to get off the schneid here playing bad football? Is it going to be Florida or Tennessee in that SEC tilt that's going to take place here on Saturday? Now they haven't canceled that game. I'm looking forward to that one as well. So just that whole Florida situation, who's going to come back from it and who actually is going to benefit from this layoff. Also,
keep in mind, Donnie, I think it kind of built off what you said. Make sure you're aware of if your team is on a bye or they actually were canceled, okay? Make sure you know the difference, because there are early buys in the season. You look at this year, UConn had a week off, but Air Force actually had a bye. So make sure you know if they're actually working on football stuff or they actually were displaced because of a hurricane. Make sure you're aware of if it's a bye or it was just a cancellation or something.
Yeah, for preparation time, that absolutely matters. And also research. I think Donnie brings up a great point with this hurricane situation, how much it affects these Florida schools practice-wise. It's because they can get really far behind in that. But, yeah, Ian, anything else you want to chime in on there?
Yeah, early season college football, sometimes you have to go and reach into the depths of hell and the depths of the toilet bowl and find some teams that have been terrible for the last year, 2 years, sometimes even 3 years, and try to make a case to make money with those teams. And I'm going to talk about not one, not two, but 3 teams in this situation that worth keeping an eye on moving forward, and I'm going to certainly do that. These 3 teams are a combined 6-0 against the spread through their first 2 games each. The Buffalo Bulls, the Tulane Green Wave, and the Purdue Boilermakers. And I'm bringing up these 3 teams because, let's be honest, these have been dormant, bottom feeder programs for the last few years. There's some upside now, I think, starting to show with all three of them. Starting with Buffalo, this was the one that surprised me the most, that I'm starting to turn my opinion a little bit on the Buffalo Bulls. But I like what I'm seeing in terms of their defense. They played very, very stingy, solid defense through 2 games against Minnesota and Army, 38 points allowed. In those 2 games combined, 2-0 against the spread. Tyree Jackson, the quarterback, he's still not great by any stretch of the imagination, but he has improved. I just like what I've seen from them, the effort on the defensive side of the ball. They forced turnovers. Very impressive that they took Army down to the wire last week, losing 21-17. Keep an eye on Buffalo. The one that I really like is this Tulane Green Wave team. The Curtis Johnson era at Tulane was a disaster. It was an absolute pathetic display by him with that program. Willie Fritz has come in here now in 2 years, and you are seeing this Tulane Green Wave team really start to be more competitive, really start to improve. I like this triple option attack. Fritz has got it installed now, year 2. They're more comfortable with it, and I like that this team in the AAC, in a conference where defense sometimes can be a little bit suspect across the board, this team is playing some pretty good defense, and they might have finally found a decent quarterback. The quarterback, of course, in a triple option, isn't asked to do too much through football, but they at least have a guy in Jonathan Banks that I think has that potential to be at least a solid enough passer in this triple option offense for Tulane. I like what I've seen. I mean, they gave Navy all kinds of fits last weekend, 23-21 loss down to the wire. Tulane, I think a moneymaker still. And how about the Purdue Boilermakers, guys? Jeff Brom, is it too soon to get excited about the fact that Purdue maybe finally hired a decent head coach? Daryl Hazel and that group was just a complete inept shit show from the beginning, had no clue, none, zero, what they were doing. And watch Jeff Brom now here at Purdue make something out of David Blau. David Blau, is still trying to cut down the interceptions. It was a big issue for him last year. It's still been a problem a little bit this year, but he got better at the interceptions. He negated it a little bit last week against Ohio. You watch now Jeff Brom work with these Purdue quarterbacks. He is very good at developing them. Look what he did with Brandon Doughty at Western Kentucky. Look what he did with Mike White at Western Kentucky. He's going to make David Blau and the Sindelar, I think is his name behind him at Purdue, going to make them better quarterbacks in time. And I already like the scene. He's a Nick Holtz psycho. When you look at him on the sideline, the Purdue defensive coordinator, he's absolutely insane. But this defense is playing like with that insane, intense mindset of their defensive coordinator. They're playing hard. They're playing fast. They're not a great defense still by any stretch, but they dug in, forced turnovers against Louisville. They've shut down Ohio pretty well last week. I'm liking already what I'm seeing out of Purdue, and they're going to still be devalued because they've been a horrendous program for years. So Purdue, Buffalo, and Tulane. Keep an eye on those 3 teams, maybe some money-making opportunities in their future.
Yeah, Buffalo, sleeper, and also Tulane with Willie Fritz. I think it has a lot to do with coaching. Those guys, great coaches, and Willie Fritz and Lance Leopold. What he did at Division III Wisconsin Whitewater was pretty impressive. But guys, let's get into Baylor. Are they that bad? BMOC, you mentioned them. What do you think? You looking to? Is this a buy low opportunity or just fade City?
I love them this week against Duke, all over them. Grabbing a 14. Again, they were poor in week 1 and 2. I said it was one of the worst losses they've ever had or teams ever had in week 1. I mean, it was bad. I mean, you can't lose to Liberty. And then you can't follow it up and lose to UTSA. But here's what I like about this matchup. They're going on the road. They're getting the hell out of Waco. They've been there 2 weeks in a row. It's been a cesspool. Get out of there. Leave. Go to Duke. Duke's off a huge win against Northwestern, a very big win. And I won't discount it. It was a nice win. Daniel Jones, a good quarterback. But Matt Rule laid down the law. I mean, he's been really under the microscope. And I don't think it's Matt Rule. Matt Rule is a good coach. It's just a bad couple weeks. I really believe that. I think there's plenty of talent in this football team. Anu Solomon seems like wherever he goes, he ruins something. And he's out this week. Zach Smith can take his team back. 9 new starters for Baylor this week. I don't think it's going to be pretty early on, but I think as this football game goes on, they're out of Waco, they're on the road. I think Matt Rule, could they really lose 3 in a row? I don't think they're going to win. They could very well lose 3 in a row, but I think you're going to see a heralded performance from this team. I think there's plenty of options on this team. They have good receivers, Denzel Mims, Pooh Strickland, Zach Smith's back at quarterback. It's kind of his team. They're in a panic state right now if you read the program. But overall, I think going on the road is going to be good for them here. I think this is a little bit of an overreaction. Duke's off a huge win. I think I'm going to look to grab the points here. I think this is a pretty similar situation to in week one, going into week two with Middle Tennessee. They were really undervalued. They went into Syracuse and got the outright win. I wouldn't be surprised here to see Baylor win this game. I think the athletes that they get are very good. I don't think they're as terrible, maybe on paper. And as this week's went on, I just think it's a really good spot for Baylor, personally. I think coming off the worst two games in their football's history, I think they're going to come out and play hard here.
You agree?
Yeah, it's very important to understand what the books have done here with the Baylor Bears. They lost outright, of course, as that massive 30-plus point favorite against Liberty in week one. And the books didn't just get beaten with UTSA money last weekend. They got their shit kicked out of them with UTSA money. That line just crashed on UTSA. It was, 17, and it closed, near 14? I even saw 13.5 close to before kickoff. It was unbelievable, the movement and the money that UTSA took. And, of course, all of that money cashed in. Didn't matter what number you got on the Roadrunners. Meep, 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 meep. They were able to win outright last week against Baylor on the road. So now the odds makers have made that adjustment. Power ratings across the board on Baylor have absolutely crashed following that second loss to UTSA last week. The books aren't going to want to get absolutely annihilated for a third straight week with anti-Baylor sentiment. And that is why you see the price we're seeing right now. Baylor, it's been adjusted. Now Baylor's a 2-touchdown underdog here on the road against Duke when they were favored by massive points, double digits in each of their first two games. So the adjustment has been sharp. It's been steep. And it's been made. I wish Big Man the best with Baylor this week. I'm not going to get involved. I still don't like that. I don't trust them yet. But Zach Smith, the change can't hurt. It absolutely can't hurt. I knew Solomon was inept last week against UTSA. Couldn't do anything against that Roadrunner defense. Zach Smith played games under Jim Grobe at Baylor last year. At least has several starts under his belt. Was solid. Again, the defense let Baylor down last year more than anything Zach Smith did at the quarterback spot. Was he erratic? Sure he was, but it wasn't all on him. Last year, what happened to Baylor can't hurt, changing the quarterback. And even the 9 starters, as Jeff mentioned, can't hurt. It's going to be a game I don't get involved with this week, Drew. I got my money with UTSA last week with a much better number. I get to bet against Baylor as a 17-point favorite. I'm not as keen to bet against the Mirror as a 2-touchdown underdog here getting away from home. So we'll see what happens, but fascinating game to watch this weekend.
There's still a talent discrepancy. I mean, they're getting way better athletes. I'm really looking at it from game, kind of looking at the game. I think you got a team off of a big win versus a team off two of the worst games, like I've said, in their program's history. They get out of their home stadium. I think it's just too many points at this point.
Yeah, and Ian, you brought up a good point with the new Solomon. I mean, I haven't been a fan of him. I know we have a lot of Vegas listeners, and he's from that area, but I thought he was overrated at Arizona as well. So good breakdown on him. But
just because you're from Vegas doesn't mean you can play.
Yeah, but a lot of the media we listen to will hype those kind of guys up. I don't know. I've noticed it, but
Bryce Harper, only good thing to come out of there.
Hey, Donnie.
Chris Bryant too, right? Chris Bryant from Vegas.
There you go.
I'm sure there's some others.
What's up, Drew?
No. Any thoughts on the Baylor situation? Or you want to?
No, I don't have much thoughts on Baylor. The one thing, just perusing there, because I don't really get started in college football for at least another week, maybe 2 weeks there. But the one thing, looking down at the line here, Oregon versus Nebraska, high shootout over the weekend. Taking a look, any ideas there? Because again, I haven't capped this game. I haven't really looked at the college football card that much overall. Oregon and Wyoming dropped 10 points from the opening line, from 69 down to 59. Did I miss something there? I mean, what's up with that game?
This is a weird total. And Drew, I actually want to talk to you for a second. I know you mentioned last week with the Tulsa Lafayette game, that number plummeted. I don't understand this move in this Wyoming game. I think this is just a massive overreaction to maybe people think Oregon's defense is better, but I mean, Oregon's offense could put up this number themselves. They're absolutely cruising right now. I know they didn't play well in the second half against Nebraska, but I think that was just Bob Diaca really lighting a fire under his team's ass to come out and play better in the second half. I don't get this move down. I also don't understand how you could put out a total of 78 with Purdue. Okay, I get they're better, but let's be real. They don't even know who their quarterback is. Jeff Brom, while I agree, is a great coach. You see what's happening in West Kentucky now. He's going to have this team prepared. But that's a lot of points. 41-35, you lose. Okay? All you need, and look at last week. Missouri was highly priced in a total last week. That game didn't come close. That's way too high for Purdue and Missouri. I'm sorry. It could be 48, 45, and I look real stupid here. But from a standpoint of betting on things, and that's what we're in the business to do, find value. It's a similar way for me, and I get shit from people because I gave a future out on Stanford at 110-1. Do you really think that I think they're going to win? It's value. It creates opportunities for me to hedge with one of the best coaches in college football. Sometimes you have to look at things and say to yourself, that just doesn't make any sense. And Drew, I know you pointed it out. Some of these totals, you have massive moves, and there's no sense in them. There's none. I don't get why Oregon's total has dropped like this. I don't understand.
Well, it's been a complete makeout session for bettors with this Missouri over on a week in and week out basis. It's really been, they just can't get it up.
Because they put 72 points up against the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks. Who cares? You, me, and 9 listeners can go and do that. Who gives a shit? Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Big man, I mean, you bring up a great question. And, I don't think anybody knows for sure. But what I've learned in this business is, especially this time of year with these smaller schools, the market, the best way I put it is it's like investing in the stock market in the non-liquid assets where there's not a lot of people buying and selling and having opinions on these games. So when these services like Raz, like Right Angle Sports, or even Aaron Renning, who I'm involved with, you'll watch him release this game like CMU, and let's just say he says the over. He has so many clients and so much money backing this that it's one man's opinion, and it goes from 63.5 to 68.5 in literally 3 minutes. I watch it all the time.
But again, I don't know that it makes sense. Like I look at another game here, Drew, with Tulsa. Okay, at 2 o'clock Eastern yesterday, that total was 74. By 8:32, it was 68.5. I mean, who's betting these unders? Because they're getting their fucking clock clean if they're doing it.
It's that.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You also have to know who is betting, and very rarely do you know that. See, Drew and we know Aaron Renning well, and usually when his release or his play is moving a line, I have some respect for that. I do because he's got that track record. The people that are moving some of these games, I have no clue who's moving these lines. I don't know if they got a brain in their head or whatever. So you got to be very, very careful with which games are moving and where these line moves are coming from, unless you know specifically. And in the Aaron Renning case, as Drew mentioned, I do. But in this situation, you got to be careful because a lot of these sharp line moves, when you see the final score at the end of the weekend, they don't suddenly look so sharp.
When the over-unders move like this, I'm fading it every single time. Every time.
I respect that opinion, BMOC, and especially like if you have a strong opinion one way, at this time of year in college football, if you have a reason to think that, who gives a fuck what other people are betting? I've lost money keeping off of bets that I thought because the opinion in the market went the other way, and I kicked myself. So I agree with you. If you like it one way, fuck it, just bet it.
Yeah. No.
Although when a CFL line moves like that, you can respect it because that's me doing that. So, but I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Yeah, but this time of year, Ian, it doesn't move as much. It's more in like the first 7-8 weeks.
I know. I released CFL plays last couple of weeks. It moves a half a point at the most. That's about it. That's all you get.
Yeah. But guys, let's get into a couple breakdowns here. We got some big games. One game, I guess let's just start off with the mainstream big game in the AAC, Louisville, Clemson. Donnie or Ian, why don't you start us off with this big one here?
Yeah, it's a great game to watch. I'm not sure I want to bet against Clemson, though, I think they're the superior defense as far as I'm concerned. That always matters in a matchup like this. They made key plays at key times last year when they played Lamar Jackson and this Louisville team. They're certainly not going to be surprised at what's going to be coming their way. I just question whether Louisville is ready to beat this caliber of foe on the defensive side of the football, because Louisville's defense, I think, does have some holes in it. I mean, we saw Purdue being able to move the ball at times against them. We saw North Kakalaki last week. It was Surratt come in at quarterback. Even Harris, when Surratt got injured, came in, moved the ball against Louisville. So I still got some question marks about Louisville's defense, and in a spread range like this, near a field goal, going to have to make some stops at key moments of the football game in order to win the game and cover the number. So I don't know if the value is there for me to back Clemson, but I do think they win the game. It's just a question of value and whether you want to lay the number. But it's a game I'll be watching. Fascinating game. Can't wait.
Anything BMOC in differing opinion from Ian?
Yeah, I don't have much in this game. Not a game I'm really interested in betting on. When you get these 8 o'clock marquee games, it's tough to find value. I think last week we had it in Oklahoma, but you got Louisville in revenge here. Obviously, after last year, they were right in that football game last year against a better Clemson team. I think Clemson's good, but are they better as last? No, they're not as good as they were last year. I don't know. Lamar Jackson, Donnie will mention it, is a tremendous talent. I think he could put a team on his back and really kind of will them to a victory like Deshaun Watson did last year. If I can get 3 and a hook, I kind of want to take Louisville for some reason, but they do have some holes defensively. This just isn't a game that I'm going to be betting on. So
and it is Bryant's first road start too.
Right.
Worth keeping that in
This
mind
isn't
as well.
in Death Valley, 8 o'clock, on a Saturday evening when you got, a great home field advantage. You got to go on the road against a team you beat last year with a quarterback in Lamar Jackson who's just better than everyone else. I have a feeling this game's close. It's going to come down to the final possession. We have to remember Clemson beat Kent State, okay, who had 1 passing yard. And, Drew, I hate to say it, but Auburn was pathetic last week. 117 yards. It just isn't going to get the job done. It's not good enough, and they really crashed and burned. So, for me, I kind of want to lean Louisville, to be brutally honest with you.
Yeah, no offense taken. I think Jared Stidham is a little bit – I don't use the word overrated, but I mean, I don't think he has the mobility to really make Gus Malzahn's offense really go. But Donnie, you got go ahead, BMOC.
No, it's a good read by you. You've kind of pointed it out that you didn't really like Stidham, and look, Stidham could still be very good, but again, he's a Baylor reject. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't know. You were right though. You've kind of rooted this team, and I know you're a fan of them. But sometimes you gotta go with your mind and say, I just don't think this team's very good. You were poignant in saying that. So
yeah, and it's not the talent. I mean, he could play at the next level for all I know. But the fit in this offense that I've seen in the past, I didn't think it was a perfect fit. But Donnie, any opinion on this game?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's already Wednesday, and most of these games, just to be comparison, have a couple hundred tickets, and there's already 5,500 tickets tracked this one, and everybody, public side angle, 71% are banging down the doors to grab Clemson here. Line opened up at 3, Pinnacle sitting at 3. Chris actually opened at a low number at 2.5. Actually has half juice at 3.5. This is going to be an interesting game for Clemson itself because you're right, young quarterback at home. He didn't have to do anything, wasn't under any pressure versus Kent State. He was never, saying, we have to have points here against Auburn. The defense sort of took control, but now you're going to go on a fast track on turf away, and Louisville's going to be excited for this football game. How much does Clemson say, all right, woo, man, we really circled the wagons. We wanted Auburn, the SEC team. We wanted to show how good we were. Now you go on the road. You're actually going to face a little bit of a test here because Lamar Jackson back there, hey, you can have the best pass rushers all day you want. He's going to get out of a couple of those. He's going to run for 30 and 40 yards at a clip on some of these outside designed runs if you're bringing House and you're not worrying about him there. I don't know how much Louisville has on defense that can combat Clemson. But again, from Clemson's offense, I don't take anything away from the Kent State game. Auburn's an SEC defense, yes, but they didn't do much there. I mean, Clemson's going to have to put up, 28, 31 points to win this football game because Louisville's going to put pressure and move the football, which, again, nobody's been able to do against Clemson, but I think Louisville does here. Just looking from a betting angle on perspective, stone cold line towards Louisville there. If I had to bet it today, I would take Louisville.
And this is the importance of having multiple books, guys. I mean, you look at Bookmaker, they're at 3.5. 5 times is at 3. This half point is going to mean a lot in this game. I have a feeling. Get the best of it. Make sure you're getting the best of it. We've preached that time and time again. Half points mean a ton in certain instances. Make sure you're getting the best of it.
All right, guys, good breakdown on that big matchup. And, we'll just finish it out here with a little bit more college football and best bets. If you like the content, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us out a lot. My favorite matchup this weekend, 137, 138 on the SBR odds screen, a noon kick Eastern time. We got UCLA traveling to Memphis. UCLA laying 3, 2.5 at some shops. Looks like 5 dimes is showing at 2.5, so a good one to shop around. Total open 68.5. Up to as high as 71.5 right now at BetDSI. BMOC, let's come right back at you. What are you thinking? Are you looking to bet this game?
I'm looking at over here. Look, I know it seems very square and everything, but sometimes you have to look square on totals in college football. I just will be honest, Drew, I don't think we see a ton of defense played in this football game. UCLA's really struggled. I used them last week as my best bet here in the over. They struggle to stop people. I mean, they're giving up 34 points a game. You also look at their offense. They don't run the football really at all. 5th in the country in passing offense. Josh Rosen loves to sling it around. And against a team in Memphis who has almost come out and said it over the years that they're just looking to outscore people. They've won 18 games in the last 2 years with one of the worst defenses in this conference. They're just not very good at stopping anyone. They're a big-time run offense. I think they're going to have some big plays here, kind of like what Texas A&M did to them in week 1 against UCLA. It's been a weird season for Memphis. They've had that rainy game against UL Monroe in week 1, and then they had a cancellation in week 2. So I think they're going to be raring and ready to go in this football game, come out and play finally. And then you have UCLA and their body clock, at 9 o'clock a.m. But I think the big thing for me, Drew, sidewise, you have much better talent at UCLA, and B, I don't think Memphis is sneaking up on anyone. We saw what they've done over the years against Ole Miss and other teams. I don't think they're going to really sneak up on anyone. But for me, I just don't think there's a lot of defense played in this football game. I think it's like a 41-38 type of game. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. I mean, as the day goes on, I think we see more and more points. This one looks like a good over to me, honestly.
Yeah, good point, BMOC, on the body clock, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Also, it's a tricky handicap because of that, and also a tricky handicap because Memphis, this is only going to be their second game, and their first game against ULM. Keep in mind, it was a pretty close-fought game, but I believe there was 20-mile-an-hour winds plus rain. So
yeah, it was such a tough atmosphere for Ferguson, and I think that's an overreaction where you have to look at the actual conditions. It's tough to throw the football with heavy wind. I mean, be real. It's just this is finally a nice, sunny, 88-degree day down in Memphis. I think the ball is going to be flying around. I think you're going to see plenty of points here. That's a good point by you, Drew. Sometimes you got to peel back and say, what were the conditions? Were they optimal? Not at all in week 1. It was really a raw, rainy kind of night.
And that total still got right around where it was marked at. It depends when you got in on it on that week. But, yeah, with 20-mile-an-hour winds plus rain and the total still is in the ballpark, that's an interesting thing there. I like the over as well. Ian, do you have any follow-up on what BMOC said?
No, total agreement. I mean, over the totals, the way I'm looking in this game. Let's not forget, Monroe moved the ball against Memphis in that first game. I mean, that was not a complete shutdown effort by Memphis, and their defense was a problem last year. Riley Ferguson and that offense was not a problem last year. Their defense was, and their defense should be better this year, but it's clear based on what I saw Monroe do against them in bad weather, time to improve on that side of the ball. And you look at Josh Rosen and this UCLA Bruins offense, guys, since the second half of the A&M game, if you put the second half of the A&M game, combine it with what UCLA did against Hawaii last week, flawless offensive execution. Rosen, pinpoint passing, bang on accurate with the football, and every pass he made, just crispness, sharpness, running the ball well, throwing the ball well, all over the place. This is a tough defensive matchup here for Memphis. But on the flip side, Riley Ferguson and that Tigers offense has a ton of weapons at running back, at wide receiver, a good quarterback. I think that UCLA defense is still a little spotty. Hawaii made some plays. Drew Brown made some plays against them last week on the road. Not going to be as easy for that defense now going on the road for this early start. So I'm staying away from the side because, again, UCLA's just been so good offensively the second half of the A&M game and last week that don't really want to step in front of them off in terms of a side. But totals-wise, yeah, even in the low 70s, I think there's still value over the total. This screams, 42-35 kind of game all over it.
All right, good breakdown, guys. Anything else CFB before we get into best bets and close this out?
I think we're good. I'm sure we'll break it down all week on SBR. A ton of football previews as well.
Yeah, bunch of college football, bunch of NFL as well. We got Donnie with the closing line. Ian starting up some videos. Also, BMOC's bet buffet. We're filming that on Thursday, right? BMOC. We're gonna film it on Thursday. We got the bet buffet. It's an ode to. I don't go to buffets, but. Try to come up with.
Are you really? Yeah. Why aren't you filming this at a buffet? By the way, I mean that would be sensational.
I've never been a buffet kind of guy, but yeah.
Imagine sitting in your own booth at a buffet, like live, just like having some food and talking about games. That'd be fantastic, man. I love it.
Hey, if Drew lived close to me, I would definitely do that. Do they have any buffets down in Costa Rica? I don't even know if they do.
I really don't know. I haven't seen one if they do. But, yeah, no, we'll have to meet up and do that. But, guys, hey, best bets last week. BMOC, you called it. Hawaii, UCLA, perfect over. Also, Ian, hats off to you with Wake. You guys pretty much had perfect breakdowns. Donnie almost with the Titans with the L.
Yeah,
I also
the
had
wrong one there. I had 3 NFL games that I gave out with Gabe, and that was the loser I had, which I gave out on the roundtable. So, yeah, we got to bounce back at that one.
Yeah, well, we're in bounce back mode. I also lost on Texas, San Jose State, not going over the total. Texas almost got there by themselves, but San Jose State put up the big goose egg, so didn't get there.